Hello and welcome to Strategic Positioning God's Way. I am LaWanna Bradford, and I'm excited to be back with you for part three of our episode entitled Integrity, the Walk That Shapes Character, Legacy, and Leadership. Again, integrity, the walk that shapes character, legacy, and leadership. And if you're just joining us for the first time, before we jump into what we're going to be talking about today, which is integrity in the world, I want to just quickly go over some things that we discussed in the past two episodes. Catch you up. So the first thing is when we're talking about integrity, to define it, it means in the simplistics of terms, doing things in public as you would in private. There's not a duality there. There's not a double-mindedness. You are who you are consistently. And it's being the same in public and in private. And it gives us alignment between what we believe, what we say, and what we do. So it's alignment between our belief, our words, and our action. That is what integrity is. And if you're finding sometimes that maybe you're skating on the edge of integrity, this three-part series was really about understanding what God's word says about integrity and how do we check ourselves. And that's through leaning into the Holy Spirit and allowing him to guide us and to prompt us that you might be walking on a side that you don't want to do. You might be walking in an incongruent way. And what I was surprised to find when I was preparing for this series is there are over 120 passages in the Bible that speak specifically to integrity. That's how important it is to God. So I think we want to lean in. And it's about that internal consistency, right? Not being swayed by what's happening outside of us, because there's a lot going on, but that internal consistency. We talked about that it's a pathway. It's not a moment. So I'm going to give you some of the scriptures that we discussed here. The first is it's being upright. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful, as I mentioned, that double-mindedness, are destroyed by their duplicity. And this is Proverbs 11:3. Then we spoke about Proverbs 10:9. And it says, excuse the typo there, the one who walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out. So though you may be thinking you're flying beneath the radar, no one sees you, I'm throwing the rock, hiding a hand. The word says that crooked path will be found out, right? What's done in the dark will come to the light. It will be found out. But when you are walking in integrity, you can walk in confidence and in security. And securely. And it's a reminder that integrity it's a pathway, right? It's not a moment in time. So again, it's that consistent showing up, that consistent behavior that people can nod and define you by how you are consistently showing up. The other thing here, it says, he who walks in integrity. And I thought this was just powerful. And I had never seen this before. Blessed are the children after him. Proverbs 27 says that when we walk in integrity, that is creating this ripple effect of blessings for the next generation, right? There's a reward in that for the next generation. So think about that when you think about your children and you're wondering what will happen to them. What am I leaving for them? We often think about, as I mentioned previously, that generational wealth, and we're thinking monetarily, but there is so much more. There's so much greater, including that can be left to our children. And spiritually, God is telling us that those who walk in integrity, let me back up. Here we go. Those who walk in integrity, blessed are his children after him. Right? So our children and children's children and so on and so on. Now, God really looks at integrity over image. And sometimes we are in the image factor. It's thrown at us in social media, television, print media. We see it everywhere. And it's all about the imaging. And AI allows us to create this illusion, right, that we want the world to buy. But though the world may be duped, right? By what we put out. God isn't. God tells us he will not be mocked. He sees the truth. He's looking at the truth of who we are. And this, when we're thinking about how we show up, God detests dishonest scales. For accurate weight, finds favor with him. Proverbs 11:1. So he doesn't like the dishonest scale. So again, think about the scales, right? And someone's buying something from you, right? And you're putting them on the scale. I'm giving you a visual here. But instead of moving your hands and allowing the scales to show you what the honest weight is, kind of put your finger on it just a little bit, right? To inflate the weight, thereby inflating the price that you're going to charge someone. So again, that's just an analogy of what God is saying here, that he detests those dishonest scales. But accurate weight is where favor finds us. So we're often saying, I want the favor of God. I want the blessings of God. And God is telling us again through 120 plus verses, a lot of that is built in how we show up every single day. It is built in a walk of integrity. The other thing is, which was so interesting, is, we know that God knew us before we were born, right? He formed us in our mother's womb. And this one here is really something that you sit in, because it says here, Psalms 51:6, yet you desired, speaking to God, yet you desired faithfulness even in the womb. You taught me wisdom in that secret place. So even as we were being formed, spiritually, there's still that alignment. There's that communication, right, with the divine, with God our Father. And even as we were being formed, there was expectations, right? The desire of faithfulness within us. And in that time, he taught us wisdom. So he impressed wisdom upon us. And that just goes back to, this was as we walked into part 2 of this series, is God desires integrity from the inside out, right? It's not an outside in job. It's from the inside out. So whatever is being demonstrated as you're walking and going about your life really is a mirrored reflection of what's going on in your heart. And when you are a person of integrity, there's a trust factor that comes with that. And the word tells us in Luke 16:10, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. But whoever is dishonest with the little, again, that's a question of integrity, will also be dishonest with much. So often we're expecting great things. Lord, where's my blessing? Lord, expand my territory. We're giving the prayer to Jabez. We're asking, expecting, and we're just hitting this brick wall. Well, God is sometimes saying, I need you to self-assess. Because if I've given you this one piece over here, and you can't do your due diligence, you can't do what you're going to say you're going to do, you can't follow through, but yet you're expecting all of this stuff on the other side, you're operating in this dishonesty, right? You're not being this person of your word. God is saying that, if I can't trust you there, then what makes you think that I'm going to be able to trust you over here? So again, if you are trusted with very little, if you're doing the right things with the small moments, the small times, the small pieces of responsibility that you may have, your meager finances, whatever it is, if you are doing the right thing, then you're showing God that he can trust you with much. He can trust you with abundance. He can trust you with the more. But if he's seen that you're not being a faithful steward over what he has, that you're not being a faithful steward over your word, over your family, over your assets, over your job, you're not being faithful, and you're wondering, why is there not more on the other end? It's like, because he's saying that the dishonesty here in the small will be reflected in the increase in the much. Just as the honesty, the trustworthiness in the little will be amplified and magnified in the much. So again, this goes back to what We really did a deep dive in part 2 of this series about integrity, the walk that shapes character, legacy, and leadership. And we really want you to just lean into that. Think about it. Think about where don't look at your neighbor, don't look at your spouse, but where do you stand when it comes to walking in integrity? And we're going to be right back. Here's a message from our sponsor, Real Health. We are back and we are discussing integrity, the walk that shapes character, legacy, and leadership. You are joining me, LaWanna Bradford, on Women in Ministry TV for Strategic Positioning God's Way. And we've gone over all of part 1, most of part 2. We're finishing up with part 2 right now. And then I'll go into this final piece of integrity. Integrity is anchored in leadership. And God tells us that without that integrity, leadership can become very dangerous. It can be dangerous for those that are under that leadership. It can be dangerous for the community. It can be dangerous for the nation. And the scripture reference for this is Psalm 78:72. And David shepherded them, meaning he guided them, he protected them, he shielded them with integrity of the heart. Again, from that inner space, inside out job. And with skillful hands, he led them. So if I'm doing the right thing and then I'm showing up in leadership, I want to make sure that how I lead on the outside is how I'm leading on the inside. And that's so, so important. So I want you to just think about that. I'm going to show this one more time. And David shepherded them with integrity of the heart and skillful hands. He led them. And now we're wrapping this up, and I want to just talk to you. I've given you numerous scriptures to reflect on and to study, and but I want to talk about leadership as you're operating in business and what that means as far as integrity. And I hope, let me pause this for a minute. Okay, I hope everything is coming across okay. I'm seeing a little bit of a delay, but I hope all is well. Before I get into the third part, I want to encourage you, if you're interested, if you like what you're seeing and you want to be a guest on Strategic Positioning God's Way, information is below. You can, in the subject line, email me at LaWanna at bradfordgroupmtg.com and put strategic, and you can schedule time and we can talk about how you might be able to be on the show. Also, you can go to my website at LaWannaBradford.com, LaWanna Bradford, .com, and there is a QR code. I'll keep that up. So just click on the QR code and let's connect and talk about what might be next for you as a guest on Strategic Positioning God's Way. So we want to wrap this up with something very, very important, and that's what's happening today in today's world. And I'm going to give you some examples that recently happened. So as we operate in today's world, it's very easy to succumb to pressure, to think that, well, you know, if I take a little bit from here, they really won't miss it. Look how much they have. So it may show up that way, right? I skim a little bit off the top. But then we also know in some of the big and larger cases that skimming off the top can result in you serving significant time. So again, integrity, when it starts to wane, can quickly crumble, can quickly spiral out of control to where you find yourself in a position of severe compromise and personal risk. I want to give you one story, and this is really simple. And this is about navigating, the gray areas in integrity and realizing that integrity requires strength and courage. So I want to specifically talk to those of you who are in the marketplace, those of you who have team members working for you, whether they're gig workers, 1099, they're your full-time staff. When you hire individuals, right, to work for you contractually or again as a permanent employee, you are looking for people, A, to be who they say they are, to have the background and experience they said that they do, and to be able to demonstrate it in the work that you provide. It's pretty cut and dry, right? It's a win-win. You've come with this level of skill sets and experiences and talents, and I have this space that requires that same fit in order to meet my mission and objectives. We agree, we have a handshake, sign a contract. Yes, this is going to work. You either are on board for that paycheck, that bi-weekly, weekly, monthly paycheck, or that contractual pay agreement, and everyone's happy for the most part. But then there are times that as business owners, as individuals who are responsible for overseeing how work is getting done, one of the things that we are responsible for doing is checking, right? Doing that quality assurance, making sure that we are not wasting money, that we are being efficient, that we are getting what we've paid for, right? We're looking at all of that, whether we're looking at our employees or that contract. I think when we're looking at contractors, we're really we do over due diligence in making sure that every single I is dotted and T's are crossed. But with employees, we may kind of, turn another cheek and say, well, we'll make excuses for that situation. But on the contract side, it's like, no, non-negotiable. If you said you're going to do this, then that's what we expect. Well, that's how we should be with everything. If we are saying that we have an expectation and someone has agreed as an employee or as a contractor or as a strategic partner, and we've entered this agreement, then we want to make sure that they are showing up as they said they would, and we are showing up. Now, I want to give you a story where I had the experience. You have a team, and this happened to be on the contract side of the house. We went over everything clearly, what was needed, and the person was saying, yes, I'm able to do that. I provided supporting documentation, and I always encourage people to do a little bit deeper with some of the documentation, especially if it's in a critical area. So this person comes on board, and the first couple weeks, things were going well. Week 3, there started to be a little question on some of the work. Week 4, I realized that there was some major errors that were presented literally at the 9th hour to where this individual couldn't do the rework. So we had to take that work and give it to someone else so we can get it done on time, right? In talking to this person, we're hearing, oh, well, I didn't understand. Okay, well, I can buy that maybe 1 or 2 times. But then it became a habit of either not understanding, or it almost appeared to be intentional in giving us things that were not quite what we wanted, to where it was taken off their plate. Because again, I said things were given at the 9th hour when they were due, and then they're incorrect. So we don't have that grace period to make adjustments with that particular individual. This pattern continued for another 2 weeks, to where we started having a conversation, and I'm pulling task off this individual's plate, giving them to someone else. So now creating kind of a burden, workload burden, because I'm giving what should be done over here to someone else. And I'm showing you how this person continued to dance around either what they knew, what they didn't know. There was excuse after excuse. So that's a red flag of integrity when someone can't take ownership and they start to make excuses, or they tend to always they're always late, or they know that there's a critical meeting and the date that meeting is, somehow they're always sick on that particular meeting date. So it shows up in different ways. It shows up in timeliness. It shows up in the product that we provide. It shows up in the language that we say, in our excuses that we do. It shows up in how someone may throw another person under the bus. So you are actually, meaning that employee or that contractor, you're actually the one at fault, but you try to pass the buck. You point your finger of blame at someone else. I'm only here because this person didn't give me A, B, C, or D. So again, when you're looking at the different signs that are there glaring at you saying, hey, we may have an integrity issue, our role is to address it immediately and see if we can correct it. But again, remember I said integrity, the word tells us it's an inside. It's from the inside out. So I can't change the heart. The person has to want their heart to be changed and has to lean in and allow the Holy Spirit to give them guidance so that they can become reformed and transformed in that area of their life. I can point it out over and over again, as I did with this situation, and it didn't get any better. It continued to get worse, to the point that the person submitted their invoice. There were some questionable things. In fact, I was charged for times that they weren't even working. They were out sick. Or I was double charged for something. And the third one, I was charged for work that they didn't do, but someone else did. And I brought it to their attention and I said, well, what I need you to do in order for me to make sure that this contract is paid and settled, I need you to provide verification of these things. Well, what did they do? Instead of providing verification, they resigned. So a person of integrity, if they had truly done the right thing, if they had really done those things, perhaps it was a slip of the keys and you misentered something. I don't know. But again, if it had been a person of integrity, they would have taken the time to show and prove as a contractor, because the burden of proof is never on the hiring or the client. It is actually on the contractor to prove, yes, this is accurate, and this is showing you the work that I've done. But instead of providing me, I gave the person 48 hours. I said, in 48 hours, I just need to know, and I made it simple. I highlighted the areas of concern, and I said, and I just need you to go to these 3 areas, provide for me what I need, and then let's try to reconcile this. I said, because without this, I cannot release full payment. Well, the person, as I mentioned, they resigned, and it didn't end there. Then there came back this series of harassments, right, and demands. I want to get paid, and it went on and on and on and on. And again, I have no problem paying. Paying isn't the issue. It's like, just report honestly what you did so I can give you fair pay for fair work. So that's just an example. A person who's walking in integrity, yeah, you might have been caught doing something that you shouldn't have. So, right, but if you take ownership, it's like, okay, yes, that's right. I forgot. I was off that day. Let me correct that. Or, you're right. I remember you did take that off my plate and gave it to someone else. So I shouldn't count that time. But instead of doing that, they took a cowardly approach. And in today's world, it says integrity today requires courage, not just conviction, courage to show up and do the right thing consistently, not with duplicity. So that's just a little real world right now example of what's happening in my world. We could go on and on with so many examples of where integrity is questionable. Integrity is being tested. And I want you to ask yourself, where has integrity been tested in your life? If it's with you or someone around you, are there any small decisions that you are avoiding, right? Because integrity may be in question if you do. And then lastly, ask yourself, what kind of legacy is your integrity, is your walk building? So that is what we have for today. It has been a pleasure coming at you with this 3-part series on integrity. Again, there's my QR code if you're interested in learning more about me, LaWannaBradford.com, or if you want to find out how you can be a guest on Strategic Positioning God's Way, all you have to do is click on Book Now on the website, and we can have a conversation and see how you can bring value to our community here. Thank you again so much for joining us for Strategic Positioning God's Way. Be safe, be well, and we will see you next week. Strategic Positioning God's Way is all about positioning yourself financially in life and in business so that you can make a sustainable impact today, but also help to build legacy for tomorrow. You are built for wisdom and positioned for increase. Until next time, be safe, be well. Bye for now.